I think that we got to get the obvious out of the way. Obviously, they signed Derrick Henry. That was like the big
Hmm.
blockbuster, big kind of sparkly off-season sexy move, if you will.
Sure
Um,
thing.
I like the signing. I don't feel quite as crazy about it as everybody else does. I think just because it's not 2017, but I
Yeah.
do I do feel like Derek has maybe a couple of years left. I mean, he's different. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. I don't give a shit about Gus Bus. I don't care about J.K. I'm injured. I'm not playing Dobbins.
Yeah.
It's just I don't care about these guys. So the fact that they
No.
replaced those two guys with Derrick Henry, I think it's a huge upgrade, and I like it a lot.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the Henry move? Do you dig it?
I think on paper I dig it just because, like
Yeah,
you said, I mean, I think Derrick Henry's like, I think we're going to look back in 15, 20 years and be like, oh, Derrick Henry's one of the 10 best to ever play the game. Like, he's
I
really,
agree.
like, he's just put up, like, such unbelievable numbers. He's just kind of been in, it's Chris Johnson effect, right? It's like, you were stuck in Tennessee, so, like, nobody really paid attention to you like that, you know?
Right.
Um, it's almost like he was forgotten about or not marketed the same way. So I think being in Baltimore, he'll have that kind of like big market year where he's incredibly popular. But I don't know, man. They lost a lot of people on that offensive line,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think when you have guys like that, I mean, granted, I believe the Titans had the worst offensive line in the league last year, and
hmm
Derek
He still
Derek still did
performed
what
pretty well.
Derek did what he does. So it's not that he can't perform behind big offense or young, I should say, offensive lines, or even just not talented offensive lines. He he's just getting older.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
I love the young people.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he's kind of hitting that area where if he goes out there and he's not good this year, it looks like he lost a step and maybe only gets 800 yards, something in that range. I
Right.
wouldn't be surprised. It wouldn't shock me. I wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, like Derrick Henry's fallen off. It's like, yeah, he's like 30 now.
Yeah,
It,
he's
it,
actually already like past that age where most running backs like start to fall
yeah,
off a cliff.
that's what I
So he's
mean.
kind of he's kind of dancing with the devil now. Um,
Yeah,
and it's interesting because I think Baltimore gets sort of swept under the rug. I feel like as a really good team, it is like
hmm,
this really high level organization with this really high level
yeah,
quarterback, and I still feel like the mainstream doesn't really discuss them enough. Like they were the best team last year. Like I feel like that boat sailing into the bridge got more coverage than this team's gotten off season
yeah.
in off
No,
season.
that's
You know what
no,
I mean?
that's real.
When I
That's
think of
real.
Baltimore, I don't even think of the Ravens. I just think of that fucking boat like hitting the bridge, and it's just like, geez, that was a nightmare.
No, that's facts.
You know what I mean? But what's funny about it is like, this move actually got like a ton of coverage and a ton of press.
Yeah, tons.
But you and I kind of had the same sort of I don't want to say light bulb. Yeah, I mean kind of aha moment, epiphany with our research on
Hmm.
this team and kind of doing our homework, if you will, on what this team did this offseason and where it's going, what direction this team's headed in. And what's
Sure.
funny is I do like the Derrick Henry signing. I don't love it.
Yeah,
I like it, but
yeah.
I
It's a,
actually
it's
think,
a,
yeah,
I was just
go
gonna,
ahead.
objectively speaking, it's a good signing. Like
It's solid.
he's a very good running back, and
It's
like you
solid.
said, coming from these like injury prone J.K. Dobbin, like Gus Edwards, that go let Jim
Just
Harbaugh take care
just
of those
guys.
guys. It's just guys. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
an
And this
objectively good signing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But continue.
but no, but I mean, you're absolutely right. I think the thing that was interesting for both of us is we ended up
Hmm.
arriving to this destination of thinking like this team, despite the Derrick Henry signing, like actually quietly lost free agency like in a pretty big way.
Yeah,
What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean?
I totally
And that's
agree.
another thing that I'm not seeing anybody touching on. I heard you kind of just gloss over it, but I want you to elaborate a little bit because I noticed the same thing you did, and I feel like when you're a team with a good unit in a win now
Hmm.
position
Yeah,
and a star quarterback, losing
yeah,
three offensive linemen starters, one of
yeah,
which was a Pro Bowler, is a fatty L, and I've not seen anybody
yeah,
discuss this, but that's what happened this offseason.
yeah. No,
Yeah,
they lost. Let me pull up my notes real fast just so I don't get the names wrong. But you
yeah,
lost. Anytime you lose Because like let's be honest, the Ravens had a really good offensive line last year. It's what made Lamar, have that comfortability in the pocket. I think it's so much of why he won the MVP is because like he had a lot of protection around him, and it was shown in games, right? Like, man, he could sit back and he could wait for Andrews to get open, wait for Flowers to get open, and if he couldn't, man, he had all the time in the world to figure out where the hell he was going to go. And when Lamar's protection, when Lamar can do those type of things, like he's one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen. Like I'm such a big Lamar fan, and I want to see him succeed so badly. And I do have to ask the question of like, why would you allow this top unit offensive line to go away? You know what I mean?
It's mind-boggling.
It doesn't add up to me. It doesn't really make a ton of sense as to why you let 3 guys walk and then you didn't really replace those guys. You drafted a kid. You drafted a kid, Roger Rosengarten, I think is how you say, Rosegarden. Second round out of Washington. Washington objectively had a very good unit last year. Went to the national championship. Went against a Michigan D line that's pretty much a pro system, which we'll talk on a little later. But that's a good signing. But then you have Ben Cleveland is your new guard, I believe, and he was a 3rd round pick in 2021. He started 7 games, and then you have Andrew Voorhees, who's a 7th round pick from 23, who's never played. You have Ronnie Stanley and you have Tyler Lindenbaum, so that's not to be ignored. Those, like, you have your center and your left tackle. Those are probably the 2 most important pieces.
Yeah, and Ronnie restructured his contract, which was good. Yeah, I thought it was a good move for them this offseason. So they've now they've at least locked down their left tackle, because that would have been a nightmare losing anything else. Yeah,
no, it would have been such a nightmare. So when I look at great offensive lines, you want a great center and you want a great left tackle. So they do have the 2 most important positions locked down. But the other 3 are just question marks, and I don't love that for a team that is very much in a Super Bowl window. You cannot. I mean, this game is won in the trenches. That has been proven time and time again. You win this game in the trenches with your D line and your O line. If you start there and you build out, it is a winning formula. We've seen it forever. So I don't know. I think this line is a huge question mark, and they're going to be tested like very quickly.
Especially
those first couple of in that division, but even the first couple of weeks, like you have to see the Chiefs, the Raiders, the Cowboys, and the Bills in the first 4 weeks. I mean, those are all 4 great defensive lines. You know what I mean? Even the Raiders, like
Well, it's interesting.
We'll very quickly find out what they are.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a chance that they bounce back, but it's interesting, right? We, in Philadelphia, we talk so much about Jason Kelsey retiring, and that's one center.
Yeah.
But imagine if they lost Jason Kelsey and a starting guard and also their right tackle.
Yeah,
we would be like, what is this Philly offensive line, right? And what's interesting is
we would be questioning it severely.
Right, and this was a huge part of what made them, what oiled the machine last year was this unit.
100%.
And I think the fact that now that's no longer on the table as a surefire thing, I think raises major question marks that I'm not seeing anybody talk about. Frankly, I would have rather, kept a mediocre running back like Gus Bus and those linemen versus Derrick Henry at 100%. The end. And none of those linemen, but I'm talking about how this is the move that's going to set them over the edge with Derrick Henry. And it's like, well, I would have agreed with you if they would have kept this line, but they lost 3 starters. That's nuts. And 2 of them are on the Jets.
Yeah. I don't understand what that's about, but
it's just an interesting turn of events.
One of the Pro Bowlers went to the Lions, so it ain't all bad.
Zeitler.
We love that guy. Bad.
Welcome to Detroit,
shout out
boy.
Kevin Zeitler, baby.
One man's trash is another man's treasure, my friend. Yeah.
No, that's real.
And it's interesting too because kind of on the theme of like this team sort of taking an L in free agency, like the quietest L in free agency that we've ever really seen, but like an L nonetheless, in my opinion. They also lost Patrick Queen and Geno Stone. And not only did they lose Patrick Queen and Geno Stone, who were 2 massive contributors for them last year, they lost Patrick Queen to Pittsburgh, who is your
Yep.
division competitor and has also been looking for an interior linebacker to fill that role as like the guy, the helmet on the sticker, the interior linebacker since Ryan Shazier like died. So they've been
Yeah.
looking for this guy, for years, and I think they have it now. Honestly, like I know Patrick Queen's not a superstar, but he's a damn good player. And Geno Stone is, because I think of how good Kyle Hamilton is, it overshadows other players in the secondary. And Geno Stone led the team in interceptions last season. Geno Stone had like a very, very objectively very good season with Baltimore last year, and now he's in Cincinnati. So now
Man, you
Lamar
hate that. You hate that.
has to see the team leader in interceptions in the Bengals uniform twice a year, and one of their leading tacklers in a Pittsburgh uniform twice a year. And look, at linebacker they have Roquan Smith. He's better than Patrick Queen. I get it. At safety they have Hamilton. He's better than Stone. I get it. But like part of what made them special last year was having guys fucking everywhere. Where it was like,
Yeah.
the quarterback seeing ghosts. It's like, all right, I got to throw away from Hamilton. Oh shit, this guy like picked me off twice in this game. Like,
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, like we identified the mic. There's Roquan. All right, like we're running away from Roquan, and it's like, well, Patrick Queen's also going to make plays on you. And like now it's almost a situation of, well, Roquan and Hamilton have to be stars every week now, or else, you know what I mean? Like you're just putting more on the plate, and I think those guys can handle it. But these are losses nonetheless that I'm not really seeing anybody discuss, especially when their defensive depth and their defensive, like the layer of their defense, layer on top of layer on top of guy is now been minimized by two key starters. It's like, I don't know, man. Like it feels like a loss to me in free agency. Like 3 offensive lineman starters and 2 key defensive contributors. I don't think Derrick Henry at 31 makes up for that. I'm sorry, I don't.
No, he doesn't, and it's kind of like putting the cart before the horse, right? It's like, well, we got this really nice running back, and it's like, okay, but you used the money to not pay your linemen,
Your guards, yeah.
You can have anybody back there if you have great guards. You can have anybody back there if you have a franchise right tackle, but you let those guys walk
right.
I do think that line in particular was a huge reason they lost that Chiefs game. The line definitely had a really bad game. So maybe it was just one of those things where it was like, you know what, when it mattered most, you guys kind of pooped the bed.
Yeah, get out of my building.
We're okay moving on from you guys. Like and it could be like, that's what I mean. It could be like a mental game, right? It's like, yeah, you guys like, it didn't work out, so we're gonna retool this thing. Almost like when the Bucks just killed the Chiefs in that Super Bowl a few years ago.
Yeah, and they moved
Andy
on
Reid,
from
like,
their 2 tackles.
Andy Reid like retooled within one off season to get that. So it like I said, it absolutely could work out. I just look at the resumes of these guys and I'm like, ew.
Maybe.
I don't like
think
that, man.
I think it was a different situation, and I think when we talk about like Andy Reid, Sean McVay, it's like they're in a class of their own in terms of figuring this type of stuff out, especially Andy. And this is a different situation. I don't know, but you're right. I mean, they didn't play well in the AFC Championship game, but